proceeds are going towards the restoration. What does that mean for you?
Well, I think it commemorates the part that the Rendell family had in the early days of Lloydminster, and the Barr colonists, when they came over from England, they went through a lot of tough times, and our family was one of the families that came over on that Barr colonist with a lot of other people, but our family settled in Lloydminster, and Dad worked with the farm with his dad, and eventually went into the RCMP and Northwest Mounted Police back in the early days. So he did a lot of different things besides farming here, but he was in the Air Force when I was born, and then we came back after the Second World War, came back to Lloydminster, and I grew up and spent most of my years here in Lloydminster until I went off and did my thing.
So how important is this fundraiser for the home of your family?
Well, I know my parents and a lot of the Rendell family really appreciate the heritage we have and the major part that the family played in Lloydminster. I know we've looked at the lloydminster.net webpage, and there's letters from Alice Rendell, who was my grandmother, back to England, chronicling the escapades and the trials and tribulations that they had coming across. And there's all kinds of stories that were documented, and Lloydminster was a major part of the Rendell family all along. And we just like to keep that heritage alive. We also, a lot of the family have artifacts from the early days, and we're looking for a good place, and if we can find a place here in Lloydminster to put all these artifacts in say the old Rendell home, if we can restore that, then that's going to be ideal. It'll be something that our children, our grandchildren will be able to say, this is a Rendell house that first was built in Lloydminster. And I guess that's the fact that we are always impressed with too, is that the house was the first lumber house built in Lloydminster, because they arrived in May, and by August they had the house built and living in it for the winter, which was a very critical aspect in those days when they didn't have much to shelter themselves against the winter coming up.
And the money raised tonight going towards restoration, what sort of restoring project is it? What needs to be done?
Well, the original house now is located on the museum property here, and I think structurally the house needs some work. The outside needs work. The inside, I've seen pictures, recent pictures of it, and there's lots of deterioration in the house. So I think if there's some restoration of the house somewhere towards the early days, now that's one of the issues that we're talking about in meetings with the committee members here in Lloydminster, is that what era do we want to predict or depict? One of the difficulties, of course, is when you try to go back to 1903, I mean, it becomes very costly to replicate something that old. And I think that we'll have to settle on something that is maybe in the 20s or 30s to depict the house and how it was built. The house had alterations done to it over the years, so it's hard to get back to the old structure as it was. We're just thankful that we've still got the basics of that house on the museum property now, and it'd be a great accomplishment if we can get that house so that it can be a museum piece where people in Lloydminster can go and see it, people from other parts of the country that are relatives or friends can go and see it. And it kind of really brings home a lot of the stories that our family can tell, and a lot of others that were associated with us can tell about the early days. Are really amazing and really interesting to people that of our age that can't really relate to that. So we just want to keep a little bit of the history in it, because our family has been in Lloydminster for so many years that we feel that there's a lot of work that the Lloydminster residents, Russ Robertson, Richard Larson, Bob Noyes, they did a tremendous amount of support work trying to keep this museum piece in place so that it wasn't destroyed. And I think we, as a family, want to continue that effort.
And tonight means what?
Well, we want to come down, and we're supporting just about every aspect of the effort that the local people here are doing for restoration of the Rendell House. I'm chairing meetings of the Rendell family in Western Canada. Most of our meetings have been held in Edmonton, where I live, but we're trying to keep that interest with the family going, and we've had a fabulous response from the family. We've got 12 that are pretty regular attendees, and I've been holding most of the meetings at my home in Edmonton. We've also had meetings out at the lake and by Wabman there, and there's lots of opportunity that we see that we can contribute with some of the artifacts, information, all that kind of thing. We're only too pleased to be part of it.
Thank you. And I'll just get you to say your name.
Okay, my name is Bud Rendell, and my dad was Les Rendell, who is a longtime resident of Lloydminster.
Thank you. Thank you.
Actually, before we get